Despite facing suspended prison sentences and altercations with a teammate, he was still able to play for England. Joey Barton became one of the most despised football players of all time because he committed so many crimes, both on and off the field, that karma finally caught up with him. Every time he gets onto the pitch, it seems like he's always on the verge of something. The wild notion of Barton originally surfaced in 2007, during a training field altercation with his teammate Usman Dabo. Barton, who was then playing for QPR, flipped the switch and lost it. This was profound. What's crazy is that Barton didn't say he didn't do it. Barton received a suspended prison sentence in addition to a 6-month ban after the case blew up and the court got involved. This should have been sufficient to keep any rational person out of trouble ever again. Dabo said that Barton made him appear like an elephant. Although the case left a significant mark on his family history, it also provided insight into Barton's upbringing. Barton's career was erratic, but so was his past. In the turbulent city of Merseyside, where drugs and crime were prevalent at the time, Barton appeared to have overcome his parental separation when he was 14 years old. It seems that his grandmother had provided him both a road to football and a way out of trouble. Barton made the decision to play football more seriously, and he was able to get into Manchester City despite being turned down by Everton at an early stage. However, it was all a front. The true guy lurking there was just about to blow up. Already signed to Manchester City, Barton's real personality stole the show, despite his ability to maintain a respectable level of play for some time. Just prior to kickoff in the 2004 league match between City and Southampton, Barton received the news that he would not be playing. What action did he take? Drove away and disappeared. And this was just the start. Barton demonstrated his dangerousness in a friendly match against Doncaster Rovers later that year. Even though it was meant to be a friendly, the reputation of the team suffered greatly as a result of the harm he instigated by breaking up the fight. Barton's fines were mounting at this point, and Manchester City wasn't sure if they wanted to keep him on the team. The fact that the player who was supposed to be an example to the younger players was also the one attacking them did not help. Now Barton felt mistreated by Jamie Tandy during a Christmas party for the younger members of the City team. With a burning cigar, he struck him in the eye, an additional fine from City. He's been suspended for 6 weeks this time, and the most absurd thing is that he claimed he was misunderstood for everything. The man truly showed no consideration for anyone, nor his managers, nor his teammates, and definitely not the opposing fans. Specifically, Barton appeared to be targeting the one location where he ought to have received some sort of assistance during his career: house. Even though he was reared in Everton, he was always picking battles with the locals. Barton was much better against Everton in 2006. Now, I'm not sure if you found this amusing, but Barton's behavior was unacceptable in a situation as formal as the Premier League. Once more, the FA punished him and issued a warning for his acts. And Barton didn't give a damn anymore. The truth is, he was out to create as much chaos as possible. The issue was that Barton hadn't yet done something incredibly extravagant. Since the majority of his acts took place off the field, it appears as though he got away with them. The pinnacle of it all came when he was initially called up to the national team. It went beyond just his prior actions to explain why this was such a huge concern. No, Barton was in the habit of berating national team players. After the Three Lions were eliminated from the World Cup in 2006, Barton, who was still playing, approached the boys who had made the decision to record their adventure. It was incomprehensible to him that a year later, he was making his debut for the national team. Despite all of this, Barton never managed to stay out of sight. Nevertheless, was arrested that same year after being charged with assaulting a taxi driver. And for City and Barton, it was all just adding up. Now that they were getting close to the brink, the Usman Dabo event from 2007 tipped the scales and caused everything to collapse. After reaching their breaking point, City sold him to Newcastle United in the summer of 2007 for a price of $5.8 million. And in true Joey Barton fashion, he didn't walk away without saying one last thing. He confronted the manager. Barton maintained his demeanor at his new club. Already, this two-footed versus Dixon, Idaho, had put him on edge. Once more, I only wanted to clear him and made no attempt to play the ball. And once more, he embarrassed his club side soon before the year ended. Got into a brawl at the Liverpool City Centre McDonald's. It wasn't even a fight because Barton repeatedly defeated the opponent. This time, he was imprisoned for the entire year. There was no suspended sentence. Ultimately, doing time in prison ought to have served as Barton's wake-up call because it was already awkward for a Premier League player to receive a prison sentence. After the case got more serious in May, Barton was sentenced to 74 days in prison but was later released. Barton returned to find that the management had changed. The new man in charge was Alan Shearer. Because Barton didn't like the guy, he started splitting the team and called him derogatory names in the dressing room, which eventually got him expelled. This man was football's very own anti-hero, and despite all the terrible things he did on the field, he always seemed to get away with it. Newcastle vs. 2010 saw Blackburn Rovers, and he was once more making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Found striking Marcus Peterson in the abdomen. Like Manchester City, Newcastle had had enough. They could not keep seeing this guy waste their money every single week. It was very difficult to discuss his on-field accomplishments because his off-field achievements were always more impressive. For his part, Barton wasn't prepared to adapt. If anything, Newcastle was done with him because he always insisted that those around him, not himself, were the issue. After the club placed him on the transfer list in 2011, QPR, who had just been promoted, decided to give him a go and see whether moving to London would transform him for the better. Big error. Just a few months after the transfer, they were already regretting it. After QPR's disappointing start to the new campaign, Barton took aim at manager Neil Warnock. He continued after that. You see, Barton had stated that the FA was attempting to control his language and the things he shared on Twitter at the time. But in reality, he was constantly criticizing people on social media. He went after the FA this time and attacked them as well. But this was all leading up to an event that would completely alter everything. Somehow, Barton had become the team's captain, and QPR needed to win to stay alive in this highly anticipated match. He is expected to be the most composed player on the field, but he lost it. Barton never ends with a single occurrence. He never ends there. After his loan, Barton returned to QPR, but not much had changed. He was permanently scared from the 2012 tragedy, and nobody really wanted him to play for them anymore. His next move appeared to be to Burnley, where he might finally be able to avoid controversy. Barton made the championship team after a respectable season with Burnley, but he was merely taking a vacation from his negative attitude. In the summer, Rangers made a move for him that they would later come to regret. After an altercation with Andy Halliday on the training field, Barton was suspended in less than 2 months. There was no denying it. The FA punished him with one of the highest fines in the history of the league as a result. He was going to miss nearly 2 seasons of league football because of their 18-month ban. Barton's ban was shortened to 13 months when he filed an appeal, but he already knew he was done. Barton was forced to withdraw from the game in the summer of 2017 as a shame because there was no turning back from this. From the beginning, he had caused problems, and now he was gone. Nothing, no tributes, no testimonial match. He was one of the most despised players when he left the game of football. Barton made the decision to become a coach as his next move. After retiring, he took over as manager of Fleetwood Town, but he remained the same. And he remained as vicious as ever, even in the second division's lesser leagues. It has to be a record low to fight with another manager in the tunnel. Barton was in and out of the club quickly. He was done by 2021. The management of Bristol Rovers was his next move, although that again didn't work out.